Welcome back to the Snod Pod with John Snodgrass, your mortgage resource, where we're talking real estate, mortgages, and beyond. I've got Mike White and Kenda Bush of Secchi here for a part 2. Check out the first episode. We talk a lot about their entrepreneurial journey and how they are helping companies with their software retain people, cut turnover in half, and help their leaders be better leaders. So Mike and Ken, thanks for sticking around for another episode.
Glad to be here.
All right. I thought we'd just jump right into, getting the business started. That fascinates me because I've thought about, starting my own business. I've been involved in some businesses but never started one. How do you go about starting it? And I'm obviously thinking you need some money. How do you raise some money to get a business off the ground?
Yeah, I think this question's for me.
This is for you.
This one. So I started, my first business was White Management in 99 maybe. So you didn't even know about this.
Okay.
So I started working in a cornfield and I created an LLC. My dad's in farming. He said, get a couple of your friends together and go rogue some fields. Okay. So that means nothing to any of
What
your
is
listeners.
rogue fields? Yeah.
So when you see the corn that sticks up over, like you see a stalk, you look out in a cornfield, that's called a rogue.
Okay.
The one that's taller than the rest of the corn.
Rest
Got
of
it.
them. Yes. So you're like,
Hence the name rogue. Okay.
rogue. Yeah, it's a rogue stalk.
Yeah.
Or rogue plant. So you go in and you literally walk out in the field and you chop it down. Use a bean hook, cut it down. Those can populate and mess up a variety of corn. Too much corn talk. So my dad said I'd done it by the hour for the last 4 or 5 years, and then he's like, get a couple of your buddies together. I'll pay you the acreage rate.
Yeah.
So we start making money by the acre.
Okay.
So we hustle our ass up, like me and 2 other guys, and we made some good money. And then the next year, he was like, you guys did a good job. Here's some more acres. Then he's like, you should get a detasseling crew together. So my brother, another one of our friends, we got 20 kids together. Eventually, it was like 90 people. We had a school bus, or we bought a church van for a while, like an old church van, and then carpooled. And then we ended up renting a bus. So we grew this business in 6 years to making really good money.
Wow.
So that was my first business.
Okay.
And
so you had some experience.
And what I loved about it is I was going to be a teacher. I switched gears and said, all right, I'm going to go into business because I can always go back to teach. And what I figured out is I created standard work or standard operating procedures for onboarding employees. My claim to fame is we eliminated water breaks for people working in cornfield. And you go, oh, how'd you do that?
Jeez, you're tough.
Yeah,
How awful is that?
How old were you?
I was like 17, and I'm like,
Jeez.
how do I couldn't stand watching people walk to the water cooler.
Yeah.
Because I'm like calculating every minute that they're not working is the business at risk. I'm losing money.
Yeah. You have the entrepreneurial brain if you're thinking that way. So you're
how do
in
I
the
make
right
more
spot.
money? Right.
Yep.
So I got rid of brakes by buying everybody hydro packs. So now they just have to get water. It's safer. If you're working in cornfields, you should buy everybody hydro packs.
Okay.
So we did really well. And that was HR. I realized it was HR at that time. So taking that lesson of I made a lot of errors, and then I got into the corporate world, made a lot of errors. And I'm like, man, if the process was just clearer for frontline leaders on how to lead and how to do things, that's where the idea came from.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, all right, I got the idea. And I took a class at Caterpillar, and I think it's by Adobe. It's called like the innovative thinking type class. They give you a box. They give you a card, a gift card with like $500 on it, and a gift card to go get coffee. And the idea was entrepreneurs don't just go, I got a great idea and I do it. They talk to people. Mm-hmm. So they have coffee after coffee after coffee. And so that's what I did is I called my HR buddies and I'm like, do you have this problem? 100%. I can't keep track of documentation. I can't hold people accountable. Our good employees are leaving. And so I talked to probably 20 people that in my network, and they're like, yeah, this is a problem for us. I got feedback. I started drawing it up on a Miro board, which is like a software to like draw up the program. And then it just went from there. It's like, okay, now I need to figure out, now I got it drawn up. Everybody thinks the idea is good. now let's get, what would it cost to get a programmer? Well, you need to write out the infrastructure, which I have no idea what that means. I would say a majority of my meetings were like, I don't know what this means. I don't know what this means. Yeah. And then you just find people that know what it means.
Find good people.
And so that's where I got my first dip into our money, my wife and I's money. It's like, to write up that infrastructure, it took about a month with a programmer to like dig in, to understand.
So you got to pay the programmer.
I got to pay them. So
not doing it for free.
They're not volunteering, and you could find programmers that'll work with you. We've gone through 8, I think. This guy was excellent, and it was a short-term project, so he delivered. But what that took was a month's pay for a programmer. I think it was like $14,000.
Chunk of money.
So I'm like, yeah, we were lucky enough. I think we had that in the savings at the time, but I'm seeing the future.
Yeah.
I'm going, okay, after this, I got to get a programmer to write this. That's going to cost, throw out some numbers. I don't know, 50 grand for 3 months or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was the first conversation about money with my wife. The second one, I was like, hey, we've moved several times, corporate moves. So we've just taken the equity and moved the house.
Sure.
And that's where I ended up taking a second mortgage on the house to do that. And which was scary. And you're like, well, I've worked the last 20 years building up this equity.
Yeah. Well, when you need to refinance and when rates come down,
you can help.
I got a guy.
We got a guy.
Yeah, you got a guy.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. Keep going.
So then we did the mortgage. We did the mortgage, and that was when we were like, okay, I'm all in. Next step is the mortgage isn't. It's not even close to being enough. So it's funny when I built the Access database, I talked to a software guy, and he said, "I'll be about $50,000," which in 2000 whatever, 8, 7, 6, and I'm like, oh, 50,000. At that time, I had student loan, like that might as well have been $5 million. Not happening. And then this time around, it was like, hey, to build out a software, you're looking at 200. I got quotes from 250K to $1.5 million.
Wow.
So depending on, and
real,
that's
real
just
money,
real money, and that's just the MVP.
Yeah.
So next thing you do is you call somebody and that's what I would recommend to any entrepreneur is like, run your idea past people. People are going to think it's stupid. There's a ton of people. Rudy, one of our co-founders, thought the idea was stupid when I first told him. But that helps you go, okay, I'm saying this wrong. I'm not. I know it's not stupid because I've seen this problem in the UK and Italy and in Japan and Korea, in Texas and New Jersey. It's the same problem everywhere, and I know this problem intimately.
Retention.
Yes, frontline employee issues.
Yes.
Like
solving them.
Yes, solving all those frontline issues.
Yep.
I know it's there.
Yep.
I know the market better than they know, but the way I communicate it matters.
Uh-huh.
So you go to person. You go, what about this? Do you know a guy? Do you know somebody? That led us to Ken. And so with the money part is I was like, hey, how do I raise money?
Yeah.
And
that's my biggest question. Yeah.
So I called a fraternity brother that is a lawyer, and I called him before when I started creating the LLC, and I was like, how does this work? And he's like, Mike, I will drain all your money if you do this perfectly.
Okay.
You're not big enough to need a lawyer right now.
Yeah.
Call me when you start when you get into trouble, or when you start getting like when you feel uneasy, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, that's good advice.
Yeah, he's good. That wasn't good for his pocketbook.
Right, but good, honest advice.
Yeah, so I start raising money without talking to the lawyer. And then I call him, and he's like, dude, we got to back this up. We got to do it. Raising money, you should get a lawyer involved. Step one.
Sure, okay.
So things that I learned along the way was, okay, you got to register the raise. I had an LLC. We moved it to a C Corp.
Okay.
And I looked at S Corp and C Corp and all the benefits. In our industry, from a technology standpoint, it's favored right now to be a C Corp. Okay. And it's easier to buy. You have a board. You have operating, like the structures in place to be bought out at some level. So that was the appeal of the C Corp. And then the raising money is the conversations with friends and family. And that, your family, if you're raising money, if your family has money or some money, then that's an easy sell because they trust you, they know you. And my pitch is, hey, I'm all in. I mortgaged our house. I quit my career, and part of quitting that career has a lot to do with what the upward mobility was there, and I basically threw that out, right?
Yeah.
And so and then I say, you are playing craps basically because you're betting this is a high risk investment. I believe I'm going to be successful. I know there's a problem, but commercializing it and getting results at that point was a total guess.
Yeah.
So I started with really close friends and family, and then it spread to people I worked with and colleagues. And one night my wife said to me, like we were talking about it, and she goes, these people, I was telling her how much pressure it is to raise money.
Yeah.
Like you have other people's money and they worked hard for that.
Yep.
And even though they know it's a risk, that pressure is always looming over me till we make it big, then everybody will be my friend. But
motivates you.
It is a huge motivator for me to do the things I don't want to do.
Yep.
And so then she said, look, you've treated people the right way. This is like coming, over the last 15 years, I've investors that are guys I went to college with. Every I think all the businesses I've worked in, there's somebody that I worked with that invested.
Yeah.
And so that there's like a level of strategic investors that they're now at the VP level. So
sure.
So we ended up raising $1.3 million, and we're getting ready to do another one for more.
Okay.
And that we raised it based off of a reasonable valuation for a tech company, and it was an idea.
Okay.
And now coming back around, it's like, hey, we got results now.
Yeah.
And it's an easier conversation.
Well, I like what you were saying because I've invested in 3 businesses. 2 of the 3 didn't work out, but and it's been kind of the same group of guys that are entrepreneurs, but like they've always just said, hey, you're giving me this money, just pretend or just take a dollar bill and throw it in your fireplace and light it on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at it that way.
Yeah.
If you're comfortable with losing your investment and you believe in us and hopefully there's some upside, let's do it. That just kind of equates a similar way you said it. Like they said, light money, pretend you're lighting money on fire. You're saying, hey, you're playing craps.
Yeah. You go to a craps table.
I always lose at that game.
Yeah. Well,
maybe
I
don't play anymore.
We're almost to blackjack now. We're still on. We're on craps.
Okay, well, that's a great explanation of the raising of the money.
Yeah, and I also when I raised the money, I also said, look, it's got to be a dollar amount that you still like me at the end of this. So if things go bad, I
like that.
I will be hurt. I got to start over on the mortgage. I lost 2 years of retirement and 401k that I would have built up and equity and all that stuff. I've lost all that. So I will, there'll be pain on my end, which I think is important. Like on our last episode, we talked about the sales not being proportional. So if you're good with this $50,000 coming out of your pocket, I'm also going to lose if we lose. So we're in this together.
We're in it together. Yeah. To kind of, that was a great explanation. I appreciate that. I think a lot of the people that watch the show that are, everybody seems like they've got an idea.
Yes.
For an entrepreneur.
We all got ideas.
Yeah. And it's just nice to hear how you go about it. And it's not easy to raise $1.3 million and now another chunk of money, or you mortgaged your house and you used your savings for that first portion. I don't know. I find it fascinating. So
I think it's in the raise part at the beginning. It definitely was so scary because I didn't have proof it worked. I knew it would work. I didn't have proof. Yeah. And then I've heard several podcasts. It's like when you're starting up as a business, it's like, what is going to make you fail today? Like what could make us fail today? And so it's constantly knocking off the list of what could make us fail. And then you're like, okay, then you get momentum. I mean, we got that momentum right at the moment.
Overcoming stuff every day.
Yeah. And the raise part with the idea, you triggered something of a conversation I had with one of those people where I just networked.
Yep.
Hey, what about? And I talked to this guy. I think he had money. He was into MBA school at North Carolina with another one of our investors, and he said he started programs. You should talk to him. And and he goes, everybody has an idea, Mike. Everybody has an idea.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't done anything. You haven't sold it. You haven't created the software. You have an idea. And he basically, like, he punched me right in the face of, like, you got nothing. Now, fast forward, we were at Founders Day here in Milwaukee, run by Milwaukee Tech, and I sat down with a founder that gives advice just to hear what's going on in the SaaS, software as a service world. And I told him our annual recurring revenue, and I told him where we're at, and he's like, man, you're doing great. So for every one of those, for every one of those you're doing great, I probably get, I don't know, 6 or 7, like, oh man, yeah, that's not going to work, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting, just to go over the, starting it up. So thanks for sharing that. Real quick, jumping back, I thought of a question going back to the last episode. We were talking mainly frontline workers. I'm just wondering, are you guys also, I mean, obviously the software is geared towards the leadership too, and helping them, giving them a summary of employees and what they should be, recognizing them on. Are you also trying to kind of manage that, leader maybe into another position, a higher position, and how do you go about that?
Yeah. So good question, John. So the software is built to make it easy to be a leader, and just to paint like a very clear picture of an example of somebody who might be a leader within our program is they were driving a forklift, and they were really good at driving a forklift, and now they've been promoted, as happens across the country. They're now promoted to lead 30 other forklift drivers. They were really good at their job. That doesn't necessarily mean they probably have some qualities to be a good leader, which is why they got promoted, but they don't know, like we talked about before, they don't know those turn-by-turn directions or steps. What does it mean to be a good leader? So what we're doing is we're making it easy. You have your phone right there. We make it easy for a leader to pull out their phone and know what the right thing to do is that given day with that given employee. So back to the point, I think in the last episode, we talked about people are people, no matter where they are, what industry they're in. So it's the same qualities, whether it's a frontline leader to a frontline employee, that perspective, or somebody in upper management that's leading their team. We're making it easy for those people to do the right things easily from the palm of their hand to be a good leader. So is it giving recognition? Is it checking in? Hey, Mike, how's it going?
Yeah.
And just those simple prompts and measuring the qualities that it takes to be a good leader, which we strongly believe it's recognition, it's the accountability aspect, but it's also, how's it going? How was that? You took a trip in January with your family. How did that go? And remembering things like that. And we make it easy for those leaders to be able to do that.
Well, I think what you just said that right there is such a good point. Like I try to do this just in general. It triggered memory from this morning. My garbage man, he's super cool dude. Mm-hmm. He told me a couple weeks ago he went to the Dominican Republic, and I don't always see him every Wednesday. But I was out getting everything ready, and they pull in. And I was like, hey, how was that trip to Dominican? And Dominican Republic. And he's like lit up. And he was just like, oh my God. I'm like, did you stay on the beach? Did you go in the rainforest? I'm like, I haven't been. And he just starts, have 2-3 minute conversation. I'm sure first of all, it's a very tough job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm thinking what you were saying is be genuine, hey, dig into that person. Mm-hmm. I think it's good just general in life, but
that's why we've called this a relationship management tool.
That's a great.
And so just like
phrase.
You've been in sales and you're managing customer relationships, and you genuinely care about all your customers, but to remember 1,000 names, right? I figured out, I pride myself in a plan. I would know people and their backgrounds and their trips and their kids. My one of my mentors, Melinda, told me, you have to know everybody has kids and how old they are. That's your job.
Yeah.
And that really helped me like get in the mindset of like, oh yeah, this is a relationship. So what we do with the customer relationship management, you're managing all those through a CRM. We're in a labor market where you have to manage your employees and you got to manage that relationship. So you can do it without a tool and you can completely screw it up. Some people are able to do it, or you have a tool that keeps track of things for you and lets you keep it in order at the same time engaging people.
Yeah.
And as we talk about the leadership and you talk about things that keep people around and authenticity is, I think it was Andy Stanley. I was at a conference where he talked about purpose and clarity, and he said it stuck with me. It's like leadership is the constant pursuit of clarity.
That's a really good point.
So you're always trying to create more clarity for your employees. So on a production line, it's, hey, let's sit down, let's talk. How's Dominican? Great. Hey, did you have any questions? Yeah. What about that new quality procedure? I'm creating clarity on what that procedure is. I'm creating clarity on what the expectations are of employees here. I'm creating clarity on how we build relationships, and our tool helps get that clarity a little bit more. And then at the end of the year, you got crystal clear clarity of what the performance is because it's all there in the data.
Makes a ton of sense. I love that. What was that saying again?
Clarity is the pursuit.
Leadership.
Leadership is the pursuit of clarity.
Leadership is the pursuit of clarity. It makes a lot of sense because as a frontline worker, any type of worker, you want clarity on
what's expected of me.
What's expected of me. Yeah.
So whether you got a mortgage and you're like, hey, like I think about how horrible the procedure is.
Not with me, Mike.
Not with you.
Not
but
with me.
My wife and I, we have real estate, and buying houses, it's like, why is this so dang hard?
Investment properties are a little more challenging. Yeah.
Yes. And so like being able to, you talked about an example in our last episode of closing a deal really fast. It's like knowing the steps and creating clarity on those steps is your leadership.
Yeah.
So it's whether you're leading somebody in a production environment or you're leading them on a mortgage procedure, it's the same thing. It's the people are people,
Yeah, well, and putting the plan out there, and I try to put that plan out there. Hey, here's the next steps, which I learned from another mentor of, detailing next steps in your email is such a good tool.
Yeah.
Like you said, hey, give me some clarity, and that email is giving the clarity to my customer, the borrower, the buyer of the home. They know what to do, when to do it. That's a good point. It's applicable to everything. That's
yes. And through experience, you maybe the first email had the entire handbook in there on how to do this, and then you go, oh, that didn't work very well, and then you're able to see
tweaking.
You're able to tweak. Well, what gets measured gets done, and if you're not measuring those conversations or measuring those recognitions or measuring those coachings, you're going into that meeting. You might be good at one-on-one check-ins. Hey, we had a check-in, but the ability to remember 30 people's information is not good for you as a leader.
Yeah.
You're not going to keep up.
And that's where your software comes in.
Yes.
It's such a helpful tool, I imagine. So real quick, if we can swing over to, the relationship, being business owners together. I've heard that being, business owners together, sometimes it's like a marriage without the sex, quite honestly.
Yeah.
What do you tell me about your relationship?
Well, should we mention that we have a third partner?
Okay. Yeah.
So co-founder.
So you guys,
can we talk
three-way. You got a three-way.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Thruple. So the good part, and somebody told me early on when I was asking those questions, is like, I know what I don't know. I know what I'm good at. If you have an HR issue at a plant, or your plant is full of issues that are around people, I sound like an egomaniac. I can fix the HR in the plant. I've done it enough times. But I also know I don't know how to do sales systems. I know that I don't know how to keep up the books. I also know that I'm a dreamer, and I need somebody on a team that integrates. Any job that I've been successful, there's an integrator type person. If you ever heard of the EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, the integrator gets stuff done. And so Rudy, our other co-founder, he is an integrator. He is let's get the list, let's knock it out. I don't care if I annoy you, I'm going to tell you what to do. Yeah. So he was such a good partner. He was the first co-founder. And then he introduces me to Ken, and I'm like, well, what we don't have is software sales. We don't know how to sell software. I got all the relationships. We have Fortune 500 companies. We got great relationships, but we don't know how to navigate this. And then Ken came along, and so that's how I look at it. As we have very distinct. We're all selling, but we have very distinct. Like, here's my niche. Here's your niche.
Yeah. So it is very much like a relationship, and I would say it is a relationship. It is like a marriage, and I would say we get by with being honest and humor. Like, well, if I'm doing something wrong or Mike's doing something wrong, we'll make sure that we address it. Or if we bring up, I think we had talked earlier about the Tommy Boy reference. There are some clear roles that we have, and Mike is Tommy. Mike is Tommy. He's at the diner after he got hit with the board. Not so much here, but right about here. And then he's shaking the bread, explaining like it's a customer. And I'm David Spade, trying to like calm him down.
Yeah, and Ken's the even
keel.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
So that has naturally happened, and I get in there, and knowing how to fix plants is I walk out and I'm like they gotta buy. Like, I know how much we would help them, and we named the company Secchi. So Secchi is after a Secchi disc, which is how you measure the clarity of water.
Okay.
So if you think about, this is really a meta thing.
Yeah.
If you think about looking out at water and saying it's clear, it's clear, like you're like, that's clear. Well, you have no relative measurement of clarity with Lake Michigan's clarity versus the Gulf, right? So they have this disc you put in the water, and you drop it when you can't see it anymore. You pinch the rope, and now I got a measurement from how clear the water is based off how far the disc goes down.
Makes sense, yeah.
Okay, so Secchi is that. Secchi is measuring people's performance on a scale is super hard.
Yes.
And we're able to put numbers to it and data to it to measure.
To put clarity to it.
You have this clarity. Yeah. Great. Again, you just I go to factory. I know, like, I walk in and I just I'm like, I see this, I talk to there. Yeah. But selling it's totally, so I'm just bottled up. I have 5 things that I went on a customer site and I was like, I called Ken and Rudy and I said, I think I saved them if they do what I said, I think I saved them $1 million. It was a big plant. They had this huge inefficient thing at the beginning of their shift. I'm like, if they follow what I said, they will save $1 million at a minimum annually. So that doesn't translate to sales to go, you have all these problems.
Right, yeah.
It's a sales guy. So sure. Ken, like the Tommy Boy reference is, I just get so fired up. And then Ken's like, hold up, we got to get 5 different people on board. We got to get through the IT guy, the lawyers, and all that. Yeah. So it's been a good education of the process, and then also it's easy to take feedback in areas you're weak. Yeah. So Ken and Rudy don't know how HR operations in a factory, like, they know generally, but they don't know the detail of 20 years experience. Yeah. So I can give them advice on that. That's where I'm giving advice. Right. And then when I start giving advice on sales, it's kind of like, well, I'm not really giving advice. I'm asking you questions. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Got it. So it sounds like you guys balance each other out, and you each have your, strengths, lanes, and you're staying in them.
Yeah.
I guess what happens? Did you guys ever get into it where, gets heated, or you just, hey, at the end of the day, you walk, like in a marriage, you're not supposed to go to bed, after a fight. Hey, let's talk about it. Let's, so we. Yeah.
I don't think we've really had any heated, contentious topics, but that would be a testament, I think, to just being open,
honest conversations with each other. Okay.
Asking questions.
Yeah. I would guess our age in our career too. It's.
Well, you're old. You're older.
Yeah, I am older than you guys. our age by like 6 months. Our age, going through it in the corporate world is like, okay, Rudy's from a small business and owner operator.
Yeah.
Ken and I both been in the corporate world of like, okay, this is how you deal with conflict, and then being in HR, it's kind of like a conflict process. So I don't know. It doesn't bother me to get feedback.
You don't mind getting criticism. Like I always tell people, like, tell me what I'm doing wrong. Like my operations team.
Yeah.
Hey, did I do something wrong? Like, I want to get better. You're not gonna hurt my feelings. Like, even at 20 years into the business, just tell me. I want to get better.
The heated part probably comes around like medium heat is around like we know we have a great product. It's been proven. Like all our customers are still with it. Like, we got a great thing going, but like how do we communicate that? And so we get frustrated on that end of being able to get that hook into the customer goes, I love this once they get it.
Yeah.
So but it hasn't been, we haven't had any issues with each other.
Got to get them to have a moment of clarity.
Yes. You got to follow that clarity. I got more quotes. I got
Well, okay, so before I had some just like leadership questions, I guess where do you guys see, the business being in 5-10 years? What's the plan?
Yeah.
I guess where you at? What are you thinking?
I'll start. You fill in. In even shorter term, right now we are, like Mike said, we have good momentum. We have good enterprise customers coming on board, and with each one of those, we're learning more about how people describe what we do and where the value of Secchi comes in, and like the reduction in turnover, the increased productivity, the boost in morale, the clarity that's provided. We get to take that and then re-explain that to the next the next prospect, the next customer that we work with. So we're still in that growing and learning phase in a lot of ways, but the growth is helping us to more growth equals more growth, to grow faster. In, call it the next 3 to 5 years, I could see us partnering or another sort of arrangement with an HRIS company. So I think in the last episode, Mike talked about us as a bolt-on or a layer on top of other human resource information systems.
So like your operating system.
Yeah, so we're a part of this large human capital management ecosystem that includes HRIS, that includes performance management, timekeeping. We're within that ecosystem, and I could see a strategic partner wanting to work with us to differentiate their business from a software perspective. But then also we have staffing companies and consulting companies that are coming to us already saying, hey, we really like what you do. Yeah. Let's talk about what kind of partnership we can have right now, because that what our service does can help differentiate their business as well. So the next 3 to 5 years, I see that for us being a focus, because we can add value directly with a customer, but for some of these other companies that are in the same realm of HRIS and human resources, human capital management, we can add a lot of value for their business as well.
Okay. I mean, it sounds like the future is bright, and hey, I'm excited for you guys. And go ahead.
I got one.
Yeah, give it to me.
I've run the numbers, and if we get just a little bit of the productivity that our current customers have, so 15%.
Yeah.
So let's say we go up 10%. Let's say we go up 5 to 10%. And we are able to capture 20% of the, I'm doing some math. I've done 20% of the manufacturing market. I think we're going to move the production index of the United States. So that's my big goal, is I want to be able to go, that was us.
That's awesome.
Because there's not a huge, and Secchi's is cheap for the manufacturers. We have barely any pushback on cost. They always want to charge us less, but we're cheap relative to return. So we're looking at customers with like 10-15%, or excuse me, 10 to 15x ROI on investment in Secchi, if
Wow.
if we're able to get those big customers and they use the program and drive behaviors,
Yeah.
you know personally, everybody listening knows personally the impact of recognition and holding people accountable.
Totally.
And it I know it sounds crazy. I talked about being an egomaniac earlier. It sounds crazy, but I truly believe we can move the whole production index.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, you gotta be thinking big, right?
Yeah.
Well, real quick on that, just you're gonna have the customers that you're working with where you can show, hey, look at the return on investment on this from what these other businesses that are working for. Like you said, 5 up to 10 times.
I'm gonna
Return
do the
ROI.
math right here.
All
think our
right.
big one. I don't know this off the top of my head, and I should. But we had a customer. Let's see. They reduced their turnover in half, 400 people. So the cost to turnover in a production environment, I would tell you, is about $12,000. I did a survey recently, and majority of people answered more than $12,000. The way I got a finance guy at Caterpillar to agree to $4,500.
Wow.
Because they're like, well, it's a bunch of finance people squeezing me. But I was doing some HR math to get to 12. So the cost of turnover at $4,500 a person, year over year, the company lost 68 less people.
Wow.
So they almost, just purely off the turnover and costs of training,
Yeah.
they're almost in for $700K of benefit.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I'm not talking about production. I'm not talking about quality going up, which has gone up. It's $700K, of which they paid a menial amount. So they had about, they had about not an ROI of 10, not 15. They were more like 28.
Wow.
So
On the just retaining.
just retaining. That's not even the production. So we're cheap. We're valuable.
Yeah.
We're not cheap. We're valuable. And if the leaders, a lot of it depends on how the leader uses it. But if the leaders use it and they use it the right way, I mean, it's all common. This feels so common sense, right?
It's so common sense. Like, and I mentioned before, earlier this one or last one, just like, again, like I just appreciate it in my job of, hey, being recognized for that 12-day closing. Hey, you got it to work. Thank you. I mean, I still think about it to this day.
Yeah.
15 years later.
Yeah.
Right.
And like just a simple thing to do and be genuine is from the leader standpoint.
Yeah.
And then probably the biggest takeaway that I've learned here is, because I came into this when I met you guys, I was like, I think these guys are like the Bobs from Office Space.
Yeah.
You guys are the anti-Bobs.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
call it work. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're anti.
You're anti-Bob. You're working people up. We're retaining people.
Yeah.
For those,
We're retaining the right people.
Yeah.
retaining the right people. Retaining the right people.
Think
Yeah.
about so is high performance rational? Is it rational to be a high performer in your workplace? It's not rational to be a high performer if you're part of a team and you do 75% of the work.
Totally.
It's not rational to do that.
Yeah.
So apply that to your workforce. Is it rational to do things well? Well, this guy sits and takes 10-minute smoke break every day and takes a 30-minute bathroom break every day. It's not rational for me to continue. I'm going to take the bathroom break. I'm going to start smoke. One of my friends started smoking in college for that reason. So we want to make it rational, and we reinforce it, and it's common sense.
Yeah.
And we think of it as common sense.
Yeah.
And to your point, John, one thing to kind of go altruistic, what we're doing is we're uncovering the good that people that normally wouldn't be highlighted or recognized.
Yeah.
We're uncovering the good that they're doing. The person that Mike mentioned earlier that is making a decision based on their attendance, when somebody's availability is their best ability in their job, just showing up on time.
Yeah.
We have a customer who recognized somebody for a perfect attendance streak for, it was like 3 or 4 months. Turns out that they had a perfect attendance streak for 5 months, but nobody knew until they installed our software. So now we're able to highlight that person's good work, their commitment to the organization, and we're giving that person, that frontline blue collar worker, something to hang their hats on.
Yeah.
In addition to, they might not always have something to hang their hats on. We're all on LinkedIn. If somebody's watching, they're probably on LinkedIn. The workforce that we're impacting probably isn't there. This is a resume builder in a lot of ways for that workforce as well.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, just like the recognition, creating a happy employee is there's only good things that come from that.
Mm-hmm.
I know from experience, when I get that recognition, I work harder.
Yeah.
So
It's the operant psychology. It's the operant psychology theory. So behavioral theory.
Okay.
And so it's the same way it works with kids and dogs. The reward in the moment.
Yeah.
And so our feature is we send a text. We not only save it in our system, but we send you a text message as an employee.
Yep.
And we translate, like a story would be, employee had their birthday and also had something good happen at work. Not the supervisor, but the manager level that's leading, 200 people. He sends a text message, happy birthday, thank you for doing this. We're glad you're here. Blah, blah, blah. He translates it to Spanish. The guy speaks English, but English is second language. He goes out to dinner to his party, and it's in a text message that he shows his entire family. And that's awesome. That's engagement. The engagement of, hey, we had a pizza party. Hey, they bring cake on the 4th of July, and we get turkeys at Christmas. Yeah. Those are table stakes, that's good. But the relationship building, the relationship management is where we are the tool to just make that easy for people.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm impressed, and I see this you guys are going to crush it. Keep me in mind for the next raise. I'm loving what I'm hearing.
Yes.
But thanks for coming on. But before we go, real quick, just I had some other questions just on leadership. What makes a great leader? Like, what are you guys looking for at the companies that you're working with?
Somebody that's open to change, open to doing things differently and better.
Okay.
That would be my answer.
Yeah, I came up with this philosophy early in my career, and it was driven by a guy named, I talked about him in the other podcast, Larry, who was a janitor. And I realized one day he was talking to me just about life. He was an older guy. Yeah. I'm like 23. And I'm like, this guy's leading me. And he's the guy that cleans out the, hey, you got any garbage? And entry level role. And I'm like, he's leading me. And that stuck with me. My next job and my next roles, I'm like, everybody's a leader at some point. So when we're working with people, I'm looking for that leader that is the leader among the leaders. And I want them to feel the biggest impact of the software, because I know they'll get everybody else on board. And I think built into the software is a sense of justice too, of like those unsung heroes that make this microphone, that make this table, that make the cameras we're using. I want to spotlight those people. Yeah. And if you said, I believe the quote that sticks in my head is, everyone is a leader, whether they're taking you the wrong way or the right way. Everyone has that ability to be that leader. And so I'm looking for that leader that's going to take us the right way. Man,
I love it. I think that's a good spot to end on. Mm-hmm. But thanks for coming in, guys. The future is bright. I see it. I'm psyched to have you guys on again. If you'll come back and get an update on the story of Secchi. So thanks for coming on. I don't know if you want to mention like where we can find you on LinkedIn or anywhere else. Or
yeah, we are at Secchi, SECCHI.io. SECCHI.io, and find us on LinkedIn under the Secchi app on LinkedIn, and that's where we put out the most content. If you're even remotely interested, we would appreciate a follow.
All right. Mike White, Ken DeBush, thanks for coming on, guys. That was a lot of fun. Beyond episode here of the Snod Pod. Again, John Snodgrass, your mortgage resource. We're talking mortgages, real estate, and beyond. We'll see you next time.